The cinema of Wong Kar-wai is one that celebrates mystery, confusion, heartache, pain, and love. And it celebrates life in such a unique way that it's possible for the viewer to simultaneously get lost and find parts of him or herself in the same movie. Such is the unique beauty and rhythm of it. And while Kar-wai's works are perhaps unknown still to many of us, in the greater scope of things, his genius can help and teach us all in our creative endeavors, whatever they might be.
All the lips are bright, and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I wasn't late. California dreaming, I'm so the winter's day. I stepped into a toad and passed along the way.
One of the things I realized about the cinema of Wong Kar-wai is that in itself these movies are like a celebration of life by reminiscing the past. And following this, I wanted to establish the principle for this video, and that is that if we take celebrating life by reminiscing the past as a premise, then can we not create an image that celebrates life because it reminded us of something or someone, it caught our attention by suddenly revealing itself as something of importance that we must capture. And this may or may not be based in the past or a past experience or something to do with what we've seen before. And so, in a Wong Kar-wai manner, why don't we celebrate our photography, both you and me, or the life it captures, if you will, by reminiscing in what lies in the basis of it. And what lies in the basis of our photography? Probably the wanting to capture something beautiful, the wanting to document, to create art, or simply wanting to express ourselves. And so by watching filmmakers who explore their characters and their characters' emotions to an extent, why can't we, as photographers and creators of some kind, explore what we want to say through the capture, creation, or documentation of what we see as we see it? The challenge is on. Kar-wai is a filmmaker that seems to like to explore ideas of timelessness, despite showing us a lot of dates and calendars and timestamps. Also claustrophobia, being lost in a given space or time, or being obsessively led by a certain emotion, thought, or story seems to be in the basis of his movies. And even though it isn't easy to convey this in a movie, the challenge would probably be bigger if we consider single images. So in essence, the question is, how can we achieve all of this timelessness, claustrophobia, loss, in our photographic projects? I would say that angles would play a major role, or the proximity to the camera or subjects, for instance, the way Bruce Gilden does in his photography. It's generally so close to his subjects that we cannot help but try and shake that feeling of extreme, uncomfortable proximity, as if we were in an enclosed space with that person. Or at least that's the feeling I get. But what we need to understand as photographers is that by capturing a given space or person through our perspective naturally imposes an angle, so if we work on that angle or vision of what it is for that space to represent, we can for sure create an idea of timelessness by omitting temporal references, by saturating or desaturating the colors, by working on the angles and the composition itself. And in case we practice street photography or photograph a scene that we can't really control, why not try and take on a movement or gesture as a focus to produce a certain perception, almost like if we were stopped in time and we were standing in a limbo as if time didn't exist. And this is what I learned from watching Wong Kar-wai, that in his movies, despite the references to time, he can still create notions that it doesn't exist by exploring motion, step printing, and having the characters narrate their thoughts and ideas, which leaves us both, you and me, suspending in a limbo in terms of space and time. But I also believe that in his movies he explores yet another key to absorb in his photography, and that is the role of subjectivity. In many ways, the reality of what we see in his movies, whether that is a space, person, event, or dimension, is shaped by the way the character is feeling, and much of what we see in films like Chungking Express or In a Mood for Love is based on the character's own subjectivity. And reading the Cambridge Dictionary, subjectivity is the influence of personal beliefs or feelings rather than facts. And so, what we can conclude from this is that letting our subjectivity affect our photography can be a plus in capturing images that, in the long term, we feel closer to or happier with. Okay, but in practical terms, how can we also achieve these colors or this type of discourse of Wong Kar-wai? I believe that primarily we need to know what the scene is about or have an intent for it, and by having an intent, even if it's something in the air, we need to try and manifest it in the reality of the frame through the angles or colors or whatever else we choose. And looking at some of these movies, we see that the saturation of colors brings to the scene certain ideas that the movie itself is trying to convey: a dreamlike or nightmare state, a certain degree of mystery or nostalgia. And if we take a look at some of the photos taken by Wing Xia or Christopher Doyle, a longtime collaborator with Wong Kar-wai, we can see that they established this palette of colors with its own meanings and intentions. And this in turn establishes visual metaphors that emphasize a certain feeling or event in the story. In The Mood for Love, we have two characters who realize their partners are cheating on them, and so they begin to fall in love for one another. However, neither brings itself to consummate the affair so as not to follow the steps of their unfaithful spouses, and many other reasons that you'll probably have to watch the movie to understand. But here, Christopher Doyle talked about the creation of a palette of reds and blacks that emphasizes the painful restraint and passion between the protagonists. And on the contrary, they also created a palette of blues and greens which focus on the sadness realization of the crumbling of their respective marriages. And this film was made without a script, which meant that all props, locations, and details had to aid the narrative. And this is a lesson that we can easily translate to our photography, that as photographers, we too act without a script most of the time, only by instinct or intention. And so with that, we need to let every single detail in the frame to produce a meaning or narrative. And I like to call these colors the nostalgic colors because they're combined with a certain type of haze or foggy effect that can either be achieved by cluttering the frame with like different textures such as mirrors and glass and etc., which can help give the effect in a certain way. But of course, we also can benefit from the use of filters such as diffusion or color filters. But also in post-production, particularly doing editing or color correction, we can also enhance these effects. And talking about editing and color correction, this video wouldn't be completed if we didn't talk about Filmora, the sponsor of today's video. And Filmora is an editing software that I've been getting to know, and since my experience has been nothing but positive, I would definitely recommend it for you to trial it no matter what your level of expertise and experience is, or what type of videos or projects you're making, because in essence Filmora is more than just your regular editing software. As soon as you open it, you can see that it includes an instant mode where you can have access to templates to create short and quick presentations. You can also instantly match beats to your footage, and this is extremely helpful if you're a musician or a beat maker looking to put your work out there. And you can even record your screen with its screen recording tool, which is also pretty cool because you don't have to have loads of different apps and softwares for it, you can just concentrate it all in one. And when we move forward with the editing of a project, everything is really accessible and honestly possible. We can quickly grab our clips, drag them into our timeline, and then making them more cinematic by choosing between a range of different effects, transitions, and also our very own free stock media that is included with Filmora itself. And honestly guys, you know me, you know that I'm constantly trying to improve the channel, whether that is through learning different things, through navigating through different types of content, different types of stories, showcasing my photography, trying things with new cameras, experiencing new things. And obviously this all comes to an end in that matter, but also, you know, it helps to know more about the technicalities of making a YouTube video so that it's better for me to expose kind of like the content that I want to expose, but of course like for you as you're viewing, as a viewer and your viewing experience. And so I never thought that honestly Filmora would be such a smooth and positive transition, but it was, and here I am telling you about it, And if you want to trial it or if you want to know more about it, links will be down below. And yeah, thank you to Filmora for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. But before we go, in 1990, and a few years before I was born, Wong Kar-wai directed a film called, or titled in this case, Days of Being Wild, and it's one of my favorite movies by him. And the reason being because there's a couple of stories, but there's this particular story of this legless bird that, because it has no legs, it cannot stand on its feet, so it cannot land on its feet, and so it carries on flying until it dies. Now, I know it seems a grim kind of note to finish the video on, but I wanted to use this as a wild yet doable comparison and as a message to end this video, and the message behind this video and the channel, and that is that, you know, we don't want to spend our lives being legless and flying around different tips and from one shiny big camera to the next and accessories and whatnot. We want to spend our lives trying to gain a certain foundation or legs in order to one day be able to like stand and land on our feet. And I think that's my biggest goal with this channel. I learn as I go. I learn with you about all these different things, about all these different photographers, different photo books that I pick up, and I try to implement this culture where I try to work on my self-development as a person, but also as an artist. And so I wanted to say this because I feel like it's important to one day for me to achieve my goals and to be where I want to be, to take this journey and not try and like, you know, spend incredible amount of money on different things, but focusing on kind of like myself, obviously without trying to be cliche or self-centered, but focusing about my work and, you know, looking at things from a positive perspective and an open perspective that can allow me to learn more and therefore advance in my own pathway. And so that's the message behind this video, behind this story or this comparison with the legless bird, and behind the channel. And yeah, I guess that, you know, I would like to thank you so much for watching, for supporting the channel. It truly means a lot. Links will be down below if you want to pick up prints, if you want to learn more about me and my work, if you want to reach out as well. And so yeah, with that being said, I hope you stay safe, keep shooting and creating, and whatever it is that you're doing, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.